Hello folks, Ryan Faluna here from Benzinga, and today we're going to try something cool. We're going to do NVIDIA stock predictions. We're going to do bullish and bearish stock predictions here on NVIDIA, and we're going to use Benzinga Pro in order to plan the entire trade and thesis out. So let's go ahead and get right into it here. I'm going to load up my Benzinga Pro. I'm going to show you how to do this just right from the welcome page. You'll notice right at the top that I actually have a bunch of different workspaces that I've created for these purposes, for the different things that I'm going to show you. But we're not even going to worry about that in this video. I'm going to show you how you can get started right from the welcome page. You don't even need to have other workspaces built. It'll help you in the future, but for those of you just starting out, you don't need it yet. You can do it right from here. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to start with NVIDIA, NVDA. We're going to type it right in the search bar. We're going to press enter. Now what happens here is it creates a new workspace for you, and it populates that workspace with the details tool. This tool is going to have a wealth of information from charts to news and everything in between, and we're going to use that to create our prediction here on NVIDIA. Now I'm going to start right here on the overview page. So you'll notice right under the price up here, we're on the overview tab. You'll often hear me refer to these other tabs. We've got news, calendar, chart, financials, peers, insiders, government trades, key data, and short interest. So just to give you an idea of how many different things we're going to look at for this trade prediction, we're going to be taking a look at almost all those tabs there. Now, for the trade thesis, we are going to start over here with the analyst trends. In fact, let me get rid of my camera here so you can see full screen. I'll be right back to join you when we flip away from this page. We're looking at a 2-day chart right here. If I click on YTD right at the top, we get a year-to-date chart. Boy, you can see NVIDIA is sure having a good year. This seems to have momentum to the upside. Maybe that will factor into our trade plan. Then over here in the analyst trends, you can see we have a lot of buy ratings. And on this gauge here, this has a score of 86.8, pretty good score, a lot of buy ratings here. One of the first things I want to do is I want to click on the More button. That's right at the top of this analyst trends bucket. That's going to bring us over to the calendar tab and the analyst ratings sub tab, right? So now we're actually looking at this analyst ratings data. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the date column header up here twice so that I get the most recent analyst ratings starting at the top. It's worth noting you can click on any of these column headers to sort this any way that you want, and you can even use the filter menu that's on the right to filter this screen for any variables that you want. But for what we're going to do here, we'll be fine with just simply sorting in descending order so we can have an idea of what those most recent analyst ratings are saying. Turn my camera back on here. Okay, now I'm going to look back just a couple of months. So I can see that NVIDIA is a really popular stock. This is covered by a lot of different analysts. And as a result, we would expect to see a lot of content in this window. And in fact, we do. But what I'm going to do here basically is I'm just going to look back through the last couple of months. So we're almost at the end of October at the shooting of this video. So I'm basically going to look till the end of August. Okay. And I can see right in here. All right, we have a whole bunch of different price targets. It looks like just from me eyeballing this, it looks like it ranges 148. It looks like there's a 91 in here. That seems to be an outlier. Maybe we'll toss that out or at least put it on the back burner for right now. But it looks like a majority of these are a little bit higher. Maybe 140s down here, got a 138, a 148, 150s, and it looks like it goes all the way up to 200. 200 does, in fact, look to be the high rating here. Okay, so we pretty much have a range between 140 and 200, and lo and behold, look at the price right now. It's 139, so this already makes a lot of sense. It's close to the price range that we have, so let's go ahead and set up a trade or two for this. It's worth noting while we're here that the analyst ratings, analyst predictions, these are normally 12 to 18 month forecasts of where that stock price can go in that time frame. It's not necessarily meaning that it's going to go there next week or today even. Time frame on these ratings, 12 to 18 months. So factor that into your trade plan as well. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the chart. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the chart here. We're being presented a trading view chart. So if you've ever used trading view before, you're in luck. You probably already know how to use all of this stuff. We're looking at a trading view chart here for NVIDIA. All right, I can zoom in and out with my mouse, but let's go ahead and set a few things up here. First of all, this sure looks like a double top to me. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that off. I'm going to use the drawing tools that I have on the left-hand toolbar here. I'm going to go under this little line and I'm going to click horizontal line, and then I'm going to eyeball this. Doesn't have to be exact. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it to get an idea. Looks like I plopped that line there at 140.47. If you have a OCD issue, you can just right click that. You can go into the settings here and you can just kind of adjust that to 50 cents there. 140.50, nice little round number there. Okay, 140.50 is going to be our double top. It's we did kind of poke through it here, but we really kind of came back from it. So we see that. I also might want to draw this trend line here because it's clearly in an uptrend. We'll go ahead and just try to grab the bottom of this, and then we'll do one of these. Just try to connect some of these dots right up to this line there. Okay, so we have this stock that was in a recent uptrend. I have a couple levels marked off here. Let's see for a bullish trade. Let's see where this can go. All right, we're going to come up with a couple of ideas here. So again, I'm going to use a drawing tool. I'm going to go back here and use the Fibonacci trend-based extension, or trend-based Fibonacci extension. And I'm basically going to draw this from the low point of where it really started to make a move to the top, and then to one of the regression points. Let me show you what I mean. It'll be a little bit easier to demonstrate. Sure looks like the price really started to kind of take off and break out right down here. It did kind of drift up during this period, but it did kind of trade sideways. Now, when we get to right here, it really started to change. So this is where I'm going to anchor my Fibonacci drawing. I'm going to go ahead and click it right in here. And now it's asking me to draw it to another top. Now, I don't want to draw it to this top because on the trend-based extension drawing, we have another data point to add. If this is a Fibonacci retracement, there's only a start and a finish point, and I might choose that higher point. But we're looking for an upside trade, thus I chose to use the trend-based Fib extension, and that has 3 data points that we need to click on. So I'm going to click on the high point, which is right here. And then I'm going to click on this regression point right down here. But in order to make this a little bit easier on myself, I'm going to drag the mouse off to the right so I get this nice little colored chart, if you will, so I can overlay that on the price. But we're basically going to line that up to the bottom. Again, it doesn't really need to be exact. We're just trying to get an idea of where the price can go here. Okay, so now we've just plopped that on the graph. Here we go. The next thing I can do is I can click and drag the axis here, and I can see more of the chart. Now, right away, I see that the 0.618 level has a value of 148.79. I might eyeball that and call it 150, again, because it's that round number, and the stocks do, generally speaking, like to go to some of those round numbers. So maybe this is going to be upside target 1. And then the 0.786 fib level above it is at 164.47. Let's call that 164.5. That's going to be target 2 for our long trade. It's worth noting that the fib-based trend extension here, you can actually see a lot more of these levels. So if you really want to kind of plan out a longer term trade with all of those levels, you can do that. For the sake of this example, we're basically just going to use these 2 upside targets for our upside trade. All right, so we have that here. And now what we want to do is we want to figure out what our stop is going to be, because we've already figured out what some of our upside targets are going to be. Next is going to be, what do we figure out for some of our downside targets? Well, a couple of things here. If you wanted to use the same fib chart here, you could. The 0.382 level has this at 126.76. So if you want to call that 127, you could do that. But this doesn't really factor in your own personal risk to reward, and I think that that's probably a better thing to do on some of these trades. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to create a long position here. I'm going to go ahead. The long position also has kind of a shading dynamic. So really quickly, I'm actually just going to click on this and hide this. Okay, it's still there, but we're just going to hide it for right now. And then I'm going to use the another drawing tool in here. If I click on this, I click the long position. All right. And we're going to zoom in a little bit. We're going to start a long position right from where we're at. And you just have to click once and it plops it on the chart. Now here we can adjust where we think our targets are going to be and where we're comfortable with putting our stop loss on here. So remember, we just talked about 150 and maybe 164 or 165 as potential targets. So I'm actually going to take this and I'm going to move this up to, and I'm just going to eyeball this again, 165.15. That's going to be our second level. And then for the downside here, I'm going to tighten this stop up a little bit. Honestly, this little level right in here makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm probably going to put a stop right at the bottom of this candle. Okay, that level is at 132. So the buy price here is 139.5. The stop level is 132. And the target level here is 165. If you wanted to scale out of this position, your first sell level might be at 150. Those, remember, we identified those from the Fibonacci extension. So right now with this particular trade, we have a risk to reward ratio of 3. So pretty good, right? We can make 3 times the risk that we want to put on this trade. And right away, you can see how quickly it was that we're able to kind of come up with some of those levels. Now, if we think back to what we just looked at with the analyst ratings, we really didn't come up with anything crazy. Remember, those analyst ratings were generally speaking between 140 and 200. Well, our entry is right here at the bottom of that range at 140. We identified 150 as being one of those levels to the upside based on those analyst ratings. And then we saw that the top end of that range is 200. So we have a trade within that range right here. We're not necessarily looking to get that entire movement up to 200, we would be happy selling this here at 165. That should give us plenty of range. All we're doing here is we're saying our trade thesis, our long trade thesis, kind of jives with some of the analyst information that we just took a look at. Now you might think to yourself, well, there's other information here. I wonder how that's going to play into my trade. Let's review some of that information. First of all, we're going to go ahead and start with the news. We're going to click on the news tab here, and this is going to give you all of the recent news here for NVIDIA at the top. Real quick pro tip. If you're looking for something like, for example, AI, which is all the rage right now, and one of the reasons NVIDIA has been in such a strong uptrend this year, we can hit Control F on the keyboard and we can actually search for AI here. And notice what this will do. This will highlight in the news feed anytime that it sees AI in one of these lines. So it can be very easy to find different keywords for different news. If you scroll down here, you just click the little down arrow and it will search again. And here we go. It's going to find us AI. This is a very common keyword. There might be a less common keyword where this might really help. But again, you don't necessarily have to read all of the news. You can search, you can use the computer to do some of that work for you. Now, if you want to read all of the news and just kind of go through it, I think that's really good. You'll be on top of everything that's going on with this company. But definitely review the news here. Make sure that you understand what's going on. And this likely is going to play into your thesis to begin with. Now, we're going to check some other things here, okay? We're going to click on the short interest tab, and we're going to be able to examine the short interest as well as the historical short interest. NVIDIA here, this doesn't really have a whole lot of short interest at all. 1% of the float is shorted and it's got 1 or less days to cover here. There's really nothing going on. After we're done with short interest, we can check who from the government owns this stock. Is this a stock where a lot of members of Congress own this because they seem to do very well whenever they trade? We'll click on the government trades tab. I can see that there are a lot of different House members, including some famous names in there, if you will, own NVIDIA here. So maybe that might play into your trade plan as well. Next, let's see what insiders are doing here at NVIDIA. So if I click on the insiders tab, wow, a lot of red on this board. Well, let's see what's going on. Looks like Mark Stevens has been selling a lot of his position. Looks like Jensen Huang has been selling a lot of his position. Okay, so lots of insiders selling here. I really don't see a whole lot of buys. These greens here, these are actually grants. These are not buys in the open market. I see a lot of selling here in the open market. So one of the things that tells me is that insiders, the people at the company that know what's going on, have been lightening their position as NVIDIA has reached some of these levels. Something to keep in mind. We're in the first example here, we're setting up a long trade, so it's not going to scare us out of our trade, but we kind of want to keep that in mind. Maybe the up move here is slowing down or reaching the end of that. So insiders here. You can also review the financials if you want. NVIDIA is extremely strong on its financials. You can see it's on the cash flow statement. Its cash flow continues to increase here. Tons of cash on the balance sheet. Lots of really good stuff there. We already kind of took a look at analyst ratings here. If you want to review the earnings here, you can do that as well. If the stock pays dividends, you can take a look at the dividend calendar here. NVIDIA pays a very, very small dividend. But all of that information is here for you. Lastly, I really want to show you something on the overview tab. If you're not sure which direction you want to go in, let me go ahead and hide the camera here again real quick. If you're not sure, on the overview tab of details, if you scroll, let me close this AI thing. If you scroll down here, for most stocks, there's going to be a bulls say and a bears say bucket of information here. These update about once a week if there's new content to update them on. But in here, this is basically giving you a bull case, and this is basically giving you a bear case. So you might want to kind of review these and see if any of these metrics help you confirm your trade in one direction or another. Okay, go ahead and turn the camera back on here. So there we go. We have a bullish prediction now on NVIDIA. We think if this stock is going to trade away from this double top area that we identified, we have a 3-to-1 risk to reward trade put on here, and we're looking for maybe 165 on the upside. And if we're wrong, we'll probably stop out about 132 or maybe 132.50. Now that's for the bullish prediction. So if we want to do a bearish prediction now, let's go ahead and set that up. Again, we're going to start here from the chart. Maybe you read something on that overview tab under the bears say where you're like, yeah, maybe the run is over, at least temporarily here for NVIDIA. And I want to play a regression back to the mean trade here. Well, let me give you a couple of tips on how we can set that up. First of all, we're going to add some indicators to this chart. For the upside trade, we basically just used some drawings. We identified some key levels. We used a Fibonacci trend-based extension, and then we also used a long position. But for this, we're actually going to look at some of the moving averages. So I'm going to go ahead and click on indicators, and then I'm just going to type in moving average. I'm going to click on it 4 times. I want to add 4 moving averages. Now, you'll notice in the upper left corner of the chart here, you have 4 moving averages added, but these are the 9-day moving averages. This is not what we want. So we're going to click on the gear cog and we're going to adjust the length here for each one. I'm going to make the first one 50 and that's going to represent the 50 period moving average. Because we're on a daily chart, that's the 50-day moving average. The second one, I'm going to make the 100, which again here is the 100-day moving average. The third one, we're going to make the 200, and the fourth one, we're going to make the 500. Now you can also change, let me go back into this. You can also change, if you click on style, you can change the color and the thickness of these lines. So for example, if you want to make this stand out a little bit more, you can do that here. You can see you can customize these lines any way that you want. But now this is really helpful because now I see some moving averages beneath the current price. And if I'm going to set up a short side trade here, those levels might be price targets. Now, first, let's recall that we did have that one really kind of low price target that was at the $90 level. Just eyeballing it, that's about right in here. That corresponds to one of the recent lows for NVIDIA. Let's go ahead and mark that off because that very well may be a price level that comes into play. I ended up marking that at 90.56, but there we go. We have that level marked off as well. Now, instead of doing the trend extension here, we're actually going to use the Fibonacci retracement this time. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Fibonacci retracement, and then I'm going to look from this move. So I'm going to click right from here, and I'm going to go right to here, right to the very high. And now all of these fib levels become different levels for us to monitor for a potential trade. So again, just kind of looking at this, the 0.618, which is often viewed as the golden fib level. If you want to read more into Fibonacci and why that's important, I encourage you to do so. But that level's down here at 111 and change. We also have one here at 117.56. And then we have that 0.786 level down here at 102 on the dot. Okay, so maybe we might even round that to 100. All right, so there we go. We've got some levels figured out here. We've got some numbers associated with it. Again, just to kind of remind you, I've got 124, 117.5, and 111 and change there. Okay, so that gives us some levels from the Fibonacci. Let's go ahead. We're going to right click this again. Sorry about that. There we go. And then we're going to do hide. Okay. Now we're going to do the exact same thing we just did, but instead of using the long position, we're going to use the short position. Let's go ahead and open it up right here. One of the first thing that I'm going to do with any trade, but especially with a short trade, is we're going to figure out our stop loss. I can see here that if we break this recent high, if we really kind of break above that, this stock's going to break into new all-time highs. That might induce a run. I don't want to hold a short position while the stock is going through price discovery to the upside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this in here, and I'm going to make it just above that high, because what I want to avoid is I want to avoid the price going right to that level, stopping me out, and then falling. So I'm going to put the stop actually a little bit above that level in case it sets a new high and then rolls over. Now, down here, we're going to pay attention to some of those levels that we just took a look at. Now, the first one that I'm going to go to here, that's going to be about 115. That's going to be in between two of those fib levels that we just took a look at. And then the other thing that I might do is draw another horizontal line here to mark off a previous level. You can see that this level right in here at 130 was previous resistance and support. It was resistance on the way up right in here. And then once we broke above it, it back tested it and acted as support right here. It also acted as support here back in January of this year. So here we go. Now we have a short trade planned out here. We have a target price, we have a stop price, we have an entry price, and on our short here, we have a nice risk to reward of 4.5. This was actually a little bit more aggressive than the long side trade that we came up with. So my predictions here for NVIDIA, if I had to choose one or the other, I'm going to take a long-term approach, and I'm going to say basically, well, looking at the trend of this stock, this is clearly in an uptrend. I don't necessarily want to fight the trend. So if I had to pick one of these, everything else equal, I would probably pick a long side trade. But we do look a little bit extended up here. If you wanted to add something like RSI to help confirm that, I think that's a great idea. Again, you can very easily do that right from the chart here. You can see our RSI currently on a day where we're about flat is at 63. You can see this stock has really popped into oversold territory before and really hasn't sold off. So if I'm going to pick one here, I'm going to pick probably a long side trade and make the trend my friend. But I just wanted to show you how easy it is to use some of the different tools here in Benzinga Pro, and we can come up with a prediction and a trade for NVIDIA, and we can do this on any stock, anytime. Thanks for joining me here today, and I'll see you next time.